Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. It's Nancy here, back for another episode of Digging into the Pet Industry. I'm so excited that you are here. We are streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So wherever you're watching from, thank you so much for watching. And if you're listening to a future podcast episode, thank you so much for listening. I'm super excited about our returning guest coming today, and I'm going to bring her up in a second. But before we get started, I wanted to let you know that membership doors to join American Pet Professionals are open right now. So if you want to be a guest featured on our show and get all the other incredible benefits that we have, you want to make sure that you go ahead and give us a join. There's a couple of options on how to join. You could just go to our website, americanpetprofessionals.com, and I'll link that in the comment section. But here is a member of American Pet Professionals, Claudia Cesarotti. Hey, Claudia.
Hi, Nancy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited, as you can tell, that you're back for another episode because you have so much expertise that I know we touched upon last year, and I really wanted to dive deeper into your expertise. So
Sure.
Claudia is from Your Copywriting Solutions. So welcome, Claudia, back to the show.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so we're happy to have you back on the show. And last time, like I said, we talked about copywriting, SEO, all the things that you're doing now in the
Right.
pet world. You're working B2B, right? But I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper, or dig in, as we say here, into the world of dog grooming and pet grooming, because you have 30 years experience under your belt, correct?
I do. 32.
Wow.
Yeah.
32. How is
Yeah.
your back?
Well,
Better now?
it is much better. Yes. Thank you.
Good. So before we do that, tell me what is new with your pet business?
So, I opened my pet business in September of 1991, and I just closed it in this just past August of 2023.
Wow.
Yes. And it was really quite sad. It was still a growing and thriving business, and
Wow.
it was a needed service in my community where it is. And unfortunately, I had to close it because I could not find any employees.
Wow. Like any groomers?
No groomers, no kind of support staff.
Wow.
It just, and I couldn't do it by myself anymore. And if
Yeah.
I stayed open only with myself, I would have had to tell 2/3 of my customers I couldn't have them. I couldn't groom their dogs anymore, which, how can you do that? You can't.
Yeah. And then you have people mad at you and everything else.
Exactly. And so unfortunately, I had to close it. Now, it was kind of a blessing in disguise because, I will say my knees and my back are much better.
I'm sure.
You get to a certain age and it's tough on your body. It's tough
Yeah.
on your body, which is why I needed support staff.
So if you had been able to find a bunch of, really fantastic groomers to fit into your store, you could have potentially kept it open and stepped back out of the grooming role, correct? And just been the
Absolutely.
owner of the business.
I could have done that. I did still enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I actually did have it for sale for a couple of years before that.
Okay.
And
Wow.
it would have been the perfect opportunity for anybody looking to do their own thing with maybe a year or two of experience. That's kind of what I did. I had, I think,
Yeah.
about a year and a half of experience before I opened it.
Wow.
And it would have been someone just kind of going right in there. And, some of the potential buyers expressed they were afraid that if I wasn't there, then the customers wouldn't come back.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
That's not true though.
it's not. And
Yeah.
it's such a needed service in the community that as long as you do a good job, I would have been long forgotten.
Well, you probably would not have been forgotten, but I also think that, there is some truth to that, people being nervous about change, right? But you wouldn't just be
Absolutely.
like, bye, see ya. You would gradually let them know and let them, transfer from you to the next
Exactly.
person and make it a
Exactly.
really great thing. And they wouldn't forget you. But, I think it's kind of sad that, now that business is no longer serving your community, where people probably have to drive further away to find a groomer.
Well, exactly. And, there was probably 6 or 7 groomers in the probably 10 10-mile radius around my business at the time.
Yeah.
And there was enough for all of us.
Of
I mean, I
course. Yeah.
never, I mean, of course you have some slow times during the year and then your busy times during the year, but I mean, there was plenty to go around, and
Yeah.
it's just even more now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting. It's too bad, it's too
Yeah,
bad. And I think going into an existing business, it would have been easier for somebody than, starting from scratch because you
it
had
would have
30
been
years
perfect.
policies and
Yes.
procedures and they could make it their own, but this is how you do it. Like that training is so valuable. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. So do you miss it? I know you were sad about it, but do you miss it or are you stoked to do what you're doing now?
I am stoked to do what I'm doing now, and I do miss it. When people ask me that, I always say I miss almost all of the dogs and some of the people.
That's the truth. That's the truth. That's so funny. Oh man, we love our pets. That's why we go into the industry, but our
Yes.
customers are the humans. So I
Right.
get that.
And,
It's
and
not always
I will
easy.
say that most of them were lovely, but,
Yes.
there's always a couple that just,
Yep.
you're like, why
There's
don't you
always
go
one.
somewhere else?
It's so true. There's always one or two. So before we start chatting all about grooming and all the questions that I want to ask you, tell me what you're doing now in the services because I know you have some new certifications and stuff like that. So just give people an overview of what you do because I know you focus on pet business owners.
Right. So I basically do digital marketing for pet businesses. And what that
Okay.
entails is content strategy, content marketing, SEO services, lead generation. So, basically creating some kind of maybe a checklist or what was the other thing? Like maybe even a short ebook. And then you can put that on your social media account and collect email addresses to build your email list. And with the
Yes.
email list, there's a lot of other things you can do. And I like to perform SEO services so that you can optimize your website and all your social media ads and that kind of thing. I also just got a new certification in customer retention. So
Wow.
basically, learning how to sell more and more often to the customers you already have. And
Wow.
that's huge because a lot of times
Yeah.
we just concentrate on acquiring new customers and we forget about the customers that we already have and that have already purchased from us.
Yep.
So, to just kind of and concentrate on them, that's kind of and just even a little bump in sales to the customers you already have can increase your profits like by 25% minimum.
Wow. That's
It's
really
something.
incredible. And you have all that background, not just from all the certifications that you got, but you did it for your own business over the years. So you
Right,
kind of already know,
right, exactly.
right? That's
Yes.
so cool. So if you had somebody watching or listening that would be like your ideal client to work with, who would that be in the pet industry?
Probably a company that, is already somewhat established. They don't have to be, like a household name or anything like that.
Right.
But just someone who is, most of the like when we have our own businesses, we don't have time to do everything.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the businesses that, they want to get all this stuff up and running, they just don't have the time. They can't clone themselves into doing this.
Yeah.
So, businesses with, maybe 3 to 5 to 10 employees, that they're all very busy on their own. They just need a little bit of extra help. And on a freelance basis, it can be, just need a little extra help with all those little things you want to tweak.
That's great. And when you were saying all the services, I was thinking every pet professional I know could use the services, right? Because those are a lot of the questions that come to me from our members and from other people. I'm lost with this. I need to do this more. I need to hire somebody. So it's really interesting
Yes.
that those are all the things that you do. So reach out to Claudia, you guys, if you're listening or watching and
Yep.
you need help with your pet business.
Yep.
So
I'm on LinkedIn.
all right. We love LinkedIn. Okay, so let's jump in. After being in the grooming industry for 32 years, I had 30. What is the first thing that you would tell somebody that's interesting in a grooming career?
I would say that, I would say to go to school. I know that there's a lot of online now, which I'm not really,
Hmm.
I don't understand how that works, because unless
Right.
you have hands-on, you
Yeah.
can't really develop your skill.
Right.
But a grooming school would help just with your basic skills.
Okay.
Um, Anywhere you go, in any grooming shop that you go to, any shop's going to do everything different from each other shop. I mean, obviously
Hmm.
there's some basic stuff, but I mean, they're going to,
Right.
their style's going to be different. Their procedures will be different. So if you have that basic knowledge, you can go anywhere and you can do
Okay.
anything at any shop.
Very cool. So would you say it would be more better to go to like a grooming school or academy than do an apprenticeship and try to learn from a groomer, or go to the grooming school and academy and then do an apprenticeship?
If you can get someone to do an apprenticeship with you, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, in my experience, we've always been too busy to be able to do that. We needed someone kind of coming in with their own knowledge.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, if you can get it, if you can do that, fantastic. And if you would be a great apprentice, if you could show the person that's teaching you, how much you're absorbing and learning by, um, actually being able to do what they're saying and not having to be shown over and over and over again.
Right, right. Especially when you have busy customers coming in and all of that. It's interesting. The other thing that it's really interesting to me is over the years being in the pet industry, I cannot tell you how many people have reached out to me and said, do you know of a grooming academy, or is there a grooming school near you? Especially here where I am on Long Island. And I would give them like some connections to other groomers that I know. Sometimes I would reach out, but we just had a brand new grooming academy open within I guess it's within a grooming shop, or it's a side. But I messaged them. I said, I am so excited that you opened a grooming academy, because this question I'm always like, because there's some places, but they're never really nearby. So,
Yes.
is that something that's more prevalent that you've seen coming up throughout the years?
I've actually seen, when I started grooming, oh, so long ago, there was probably 3 or 4 grooming schools like in this Chicagoland suburban area.
Okay.
I want to say now there still might be at least 2 or 3.
Hmm.
And there's actually one I know of in Long Grove, Illinois, that looks absolutely lovely. Um, and I know there was a long time one that I don't think it's available anymore. I mean, it was probably open for 20 years, 30 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's probably not there anymore. But that would be, I mean, I always wanted to do that myself. I would have always loved to have some kind of teaching or an academy kind of thing, maybe even after hours.
Yeah.
But it just was too much to kind of work out. And so that's wonderful that someone's actually finally doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are other academies, but it just happened to be local to where I am, so I was really excited about it. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping to go visit the place and check it out, because I get that question all the time. I mean, I haven't gotten it in a while, but I've gotten that question by a lot of pet parents that have kids that are like, "Hey, I have a teenager and she's interested in grooming. Do you know of anybody?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
and that's why I would like just send them to a couple of groomers locally within our organization. So I know you touched upon like how would you learn how to groom with an online course, but not for grooming, actual grooming. Do you know if there's any grooming courses on how to run a grooming business online that you would suggest for like a brand new grooming owner?
On how to run a grooming business?
Yeah.
I don't recall one off the top of my head. I just kind
Okay.
of learned as I went along.
Hmm.
I just, I mean, it's just a lot of common sense, you know.
Right.
Like I decided way back when that I didn't even need a computer in my shop,
Mm.
because I was still using the 5x8, index cards,
Yeah. Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
that worked for me,
Yeah.
and I do feel like with all the dander and the hair that's flying around all over the place, it would be a good environment for a computer. Now,
Right.
obviously, I used a computer to, I used QuickBooks for like all my financial stuff, payroll and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, I just think that a lot of times I was thinking that it was going to be overcomplicating what I was already doing, by, having a computer or using the software that, I just didn't need a lot of that. If you have a daycare and a grooming and a vet, then you're going to need it. You're going to absolutely need it. But when you're just kind of a small grooming shop, you just keep it as simple as possible because you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's interesting because over the years working with some app developers and really trying to focus on groomers and, the payments and the scheduling, and they always had a harder time broaching the owner of the grooming shop to, get onto that page. So I know people that still have the book, that for their
And I
grooming, that's how
did.
they do it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I just, it was so much easier for me for people to call and schedule or just reschedule after an appointment than it would be to try and have them schedule and possibly not at working and somebody else double scheduled and then someone's unhappy. And it's just a way of just
like a lot.
bypassing all of that.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, that's pretty cool. So, we have a lot of grooming industry events here in the pet industry. Did you frequent a lot of those grooming events? I know they're across the country, they're all over the place.
I did. I
Yeah.
actually had a bunch, I'm in the Chicago area.
Mhm.
So we did have a bunch of them. We had the All-American Grooming Show here every year, which is in one of the suburbs. So yes, I would go to those. I would kind of watch the competitions and, frequent the booths and stuff like that. I actually went to Global Pet Expo last year in Orlando.
Yeah.
And, and I wouldn't go to there wasn't those huge shows in my area, but I mean, they were big enough and they were very helpful when I needed equipment or supplies or, any kind of my grooming shears or anything like that.
Yeah, and a lot of them have really great educational courses and classes within the grooming event. So I think, I think it's good for groomers to go to those events, not only to see, feel, and touch the different products, right? But also to, be in that networking area and be with their peers. So I think it's great that you went to a lot of them, and I'm imagining you would suggest people to go to them as well.
Absolutely. And especially all the, classes and courses and seminars that they have, because it was just so helpful, and just to kind of keep updated and just to kind of, like all the people in where I worked we needed to do animal CPR, and they always had a class on that. And it was just something that just was helpful that, and kept us up to date.
That's a great point. Yeah. And I also think bringing up the pet first aid and CPR, I think, I've taken that class, and I think anybody that even just has a dog or a cat should take that, because you'll learn life-saving. And I think it helps your pet business stand out when you have groomers and people there that are certified in the pet first aid and CPR, especially yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What would you say to the stressed out grooming boutique owner right now? Tips that have helped you over the years to address the stress?
Well, again, I think just to make sure that you're doing everything as simply as possible. Don't put any more work on yourself than you actually need to, because, most grooming owners, and myself included, not only were we the owner, but we were a groomer, so I mean, we did the whole job and we did the stuff on top. So, and if you can, find somebody that maybe takes a little bit of the grooming off your shoulders so you can actually perform some of your administrative tasks during business hours, that would be helpful, so that you, instead of your 8-hour day, it doesn't extend into a 10 or 12-hour day because of all the other stuff you have to do.
Yes, I love that. I love that. That's so
yeah,
great.
just try to keep it as simple as you can.
I love that. It's so true, because I feel like we're always trying to like just add another customer in, get another customer in, or you might have that pushy customers like, we're having an event at our house this weekend. We just realized the dog needed grooming. And you're like, okay. And then the next thing you know, it's 10 o'clock at night. You're going home. So
exactly. I did that for years when I first started grooming. I mean, I must have done that for 8 or 10 years. And then you finally get to the point where, you try to squeeze them in the next day, or you try to, or, God forbid, you tell them, I'm so sorry, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Because I just can't do it,
Yeah. And that's a thing about pet parents, right? I think some pet parents, they can be demanding, right? So I think,
Yes.
maybe as if you're a pet parent listening or watching, think about that groomer that has just had, 20 dogs in their shop, multiple groomers, and now you're calling at the last minute because you had an event planned and you want to make sure your dog is groomed for the event. Like, think about them, because you wouldn't want somebody doing that to you in your business. I always
And
think about that.
yes, and the groomer truly wants to help you, but once it gets to be, and especially if it gets to be a habit with the same person, and if it just
Yeah.
gets to be too much, you just kind of gotta, set a few boundaries sometimes. And I had, and
Yeah.
I had to learn how to do that.
Yes, I think that's such great advice, because you will want to be that people pleaser, get every customer you can, all of that. But setting those
Yes.
boundaries are so important, especially when you're starting out, because we are so hungry to get our business to be successful that we don't always think about, oh, there's boundaries. I know I was
Right.
guilty of that
Exactly.
too. No is a
Exactly.
complete sentence. Oh my God. So, okay. So, how about a customer who is not happy with the groom, i.e., maybe the dog was matted and they had to be shaved down? Any advice on how to handle a heated customer that, maybe you've explained it to them, but they weren't expecting what they got when they pick up their dog? How would you tell a new groomer or younger groomers how to handle that situation so they are professional about it?
Well, first of all, stay calm yourself. And most of all, don't take it personally,
Mm,
because you know that you explained this. I can't tell you, this did happen to me on multiple occasions,
I'm
and
sure.
you really can't avoid it, because when a dog comes in and you say it has to be shaved, and sometimes I'll even say, you see that dog over there, that's how short it's going to be. So you can kind of, if you can give them a visual,
Mm,
because what they're thinking and what you're thinking are most likely two different things. And I have had people that were upset. And so, stay calm. Don't take it personally, and just explain again that this is how this is good for the dog. And, that, believe me, the hair will grow back, and it'll be, grown back faster than you can even imagine.
yeah.
And, that, and how you can educate them in ways to not let the dog get mad at again.
Right. That's so important. I love that. Stay calm and don't take it personally, because that
Don't
is
take it
something
personally. Yes.
easier
Because,
said than
it's
done.
our work is creative, and
Yes,
our
we're
work,
artists.
and yeah, and we put a lot of effort and emotion into our work, and it is personal. But you can't take it personally, because you're not going to be able to think yourself if you do that.
Yes.
So you kind of got to
Yeah.
take yourself out of it
I love that.
if you
Maybe if
can.
they had like
Right.
a photo of like a shaved dog in different
Yes.
popular breeds that come in, because I just literally saw a viral video the other day, and it was like this cute little Yorkie, obviously had really long, it was longer hair than it should have. I don't know if the dog was matted, but it kind of looked like it. And they shaved the dog. And she said, I don't mind if the dog was shaved, but his face. And so it was like, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe you didn't realize how mad at the dog was, So
Right.
that's kind of what I think about when the groomers are getting that heated stuff. So I really appreciate that. Stay calm and don't take it personally. Easier
Right.
said than done, but you will get
Yes.
better sleep if you're not taking it personally, right?
Absolutely. Because you've done the best job you could with
Right.
what you had,
Yes,
and no one can take that away from you. So
exactly.
you don't have to be, you don't have to be guilty. You don't have to worry about it, because you did the best you could with what you had. You told the person, and because they didn't understand it, or perhaps they're coming at it from a different perspective,
Mhm.
that's not really your fault. Even though you're being blamed, it's not really your fault. So
Right, right, exactly. Okay, so this is kind this we didn't prep for this question, but this is kind of on the same cusp. What is something that you learned later in your grooming career that you wish someone had told you or given you advice on?
probably along the same lines of, kind of an upset customer. So even before they get upset because I have to shave their dog, I got to the point where they would say, well, I would say, well, show them, I have to shave the dog, and this is why, and here, here, and here. And the person will say, well, I don't want the dog shaved. And then I would say, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Yeah.
And,
That's good.
and I mean, it would just, sometimes they would get mad. Sometimes they would reconsider, and, just saying that I'm sorry, I can't help you because I know that this is all I can do. And then you can make the decision whether or not you want that done or you want to take her somewhere else.
I love that. And it's a very calm, approachable way that you're saying instead
Right.
of bringing that heated
Right.
discussion into it. Yeah.
And I mean, you can't really look at it as like, oh my God, a customer's walking out the door, because it was like, we would have people that would come in and they wanted, like, we did strictly pet grooming. And I define pet grooming as, something that keeps your dog low maintenance and cute for the longest time possible. So we didn't do any kind of show grooming or, any kind of fancy stuff. And when people wanted that, I could just explain, I'm sorry, that's not what we do.
Yeah.
And I mean, they could go and then either they can accept that and stay, or they can go find what they want, which is not what you offer.
Right. I love that. I was going to ask you, did you have a niche focus? And what do you think is that a good practice for a grooming to be like the show dog groomer or the doodle groomer, or we only groom small dogs type of thing? You think that's a good practice, or you think people should just have, kind of a broader spectrum?
I think that, I kind of adopted that whole kind of, we do strictly pet grooming, because it was the most time efficient.
Gotcha.
Show grooming takes forever and it's very exacting. And, unless you're an actual show groomer, I mean, you basically have to charge by the hour,
Right.
and it's not, a lot of times the time you're putting in is not maybe worth the price that the person wants to pay, even though, because their dog's not a show dog and they just want it to look like a show dog.
Right.
So that, to me, when I would say we did strictly pet grooming, that didn't mean we didn't do puppy cuts or longer haired haircuts. We didn't just shave dogs, but
Right.
I didn't leave the 2 and 3 inches on. I didn't do the whole like dematting, or stripping or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Because it was just too time consuming.
Yeah.
And
I like that you did that, because that kind of kept your business in that, getting more customers in and, having those happy customers for pet parents. And show dog grooming, you're right. It's a ton of work. Takes a long time. I mean, if you've ever been to a dog show, watching them even prep a dog that's already groomed,
exactly.
it's a lot. Yeah.
It's
a
oh
lot.
my goodness. That's amazing what they do.
Why it's one of the reasons I always have short-haired dogs.
Right.
No grooming required except for brushing and bathing. But okay, so when it comes to hiring a new groomer, since I know you couldn't find people, did you have a process to find the best fit for your boutique when you did hire groomers?
So I did like the groomer to have, if they didn't have actual like experience, at least to have that basis from a grooming school or an academy.
Gotcha.
So, and I mean, and I was always more than happy to teach them, show them things. Basically, every grooming shop has their own way of doing things anyway. So even if you're a groomer with, 5 and 10 years experience, if you go to a new shop, you're going to do things in a different way anyway, even though you know what you're doing already.
Right.
But, so, and I would just try to, depending on their experience, and I would always let the customer know that, we have a new groomer and your dog's going to, be groomed by the new groomer. And I would always ask if that's okay. And usually it was, 9 times out of 10 it was. Sometimes it wasn't, rarely. But I think too that helps, and it lets the customer then, get ready for it. Might not look exactly like it usually does,
Right. That's great. I love it. So should groomers be full-time employees within a business, or should they have, the outside contractor or like renting a space from the grooming salon? Which do you think works better for a business model?
Oh, that's a really good question. When I did it, they were all W-2 employees.
Okay.
Which can be expensive,
Yeah.
And then I did get a new gal one time, and she wanted to be a 1099 employee, and I was okay with that. I guess it would just kind of depend on what they wanted. I never had anyone ask me just to kind of rent a space, But I know that that's like a new thing that's coming up now, almost like all the hairdressers do now.
Right, exactly. I know some, yeah, right.
Hair.
I know some places do that where they'll have, a couple of groomers who like that'll be, they'll come in a few days a week, but they're not there full time. So I'm always interested to find out what people think about that.
Yeah.
And the
But the
W-2, then it's your employee and they're
right.
following your policies and procedure. I personally think it's better for your business, but
I do too. I do too. That's the way I did it for all those years, except for the maybe one or two. And I mean, it
Mhm.
worked out fine. The 1099 worked out fine in those cases also,
Yeah,
but I did always have W-2 employees.
interesting. Okay, cool. So what hiring advice would you give to a new grooming? They have maybe one or two people, but they need like 3 or 4 more groomers to keep up with that workload and customer base. What would you tell them?
Well, I had the most success in hiring off of Facebook ads, really, and
Wow.
only because it kind of targeted that age group.
Gotcha.
And so and it was a very easy thing to do. It was relatively inexpensive as opposed to like an Indeed or a ZipRecruiter, which I don't really think groomers would go to anyway to look for that.
Right.
To look for a grooming job. They wouldn't really go to like ZipRecruiter or, but I thought that it was, and I would make the Facebook ad and I would do it within like a 10 or 15 mile radius around my business so that
Hmm.
it would just target people that were interested because most people aren't going to really drive more than 15 miles. You're already looking at almost probably a half an hour each way
Yeah.
to your house, So, but I found that was the best. And I would put a help wanted sign, a lot of times word of mouth, especially before like social media. I put a sign up in
Right.
the window and I would usually have, or sometimes I would put an ad in Groomer to Groomer. Remember
Hmm.
that magazine?
Yeah,
I
I
put
think I still get
there.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just in kind of the publications too. And that was fairly inexpensive. And obviously
Interesting.
that's your target market,
Yeah.
if you can
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
someone in your area.
Definitely. Okay, that's really cool. So what about a pet store that is like really either a boutique or a pet supply store and they don't have any services within their store and they decide they want to add grooming? Any quick advice that you'd like to give to them?
To the store owner.
Yeah.
I would say to make sure that you have a dedicated grooming space.
Mm,
If you're going to do that, and you want to make it so that, there isn't dander and hair flying all over your lovely, all your nice,
right.
merchandise. And so a dedicated grooming space with some proper equipment is,
Mhm.
any groomer would love that.
That's great. Okay, yeah, because I know what you mean. Like some of the stores that have the self wash, and then it's in the back of the store, and then there's just dog hair flying everywhere.
Right.
It's not always conducive.
Exactly.
Maybe a self-contained space would be better,
Yeah.
especially for grooming. Right? Exactly. Okay, so when it comes to marketing a grooming boutique, putting your copywriting hat back on, what tips would you suggest? Because I feel like groomers are just always so busy and they don't always focus on marketing. What would you give them?
I would say to try, probably the fastest thing that you can do is like a social media post, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, kind of depending on, what age group you're looking to
Right.
target. Because usually when you learn how to do that, and it doesn't take long to learn it, that is something that you can do quickly,
Yeah.
and you can probably post, once or twice a day without it really interfering with your daily routine.
Hmm.
And then
Okay.
that brings you more awareness. And then, and I would also say to have owners collect email addresses.
Oh, yes.
You can just
Yeah.
have something up front and just collect email addresses so that you can create an email list. Maybe you want to create a monthly newsletter, and something
Hmm.
like that too. And it doesn't have to be, pages and pages long. It could be one page with,
Yeah.
the seasonal kind of, it's flea season, let's make sure that, we offer flea baths and we can check your dog for fleas or whatever, it doesn't have to be this big complicated thing. It can be one page. You email it out, you can get a template off of, Word basically,
Yeah.
and, fill it in and send it out. It doesn't have to be complicated and it doesn't have to take a huge amount of time.
I love that. And I also think, like, say it's a slower time for groomers, right? Maybe they're in, like, they know the next month or 2 months is their slower season and they're looking to increase their revenue, sending something out like, did you know that we can do flea baths or check for fleas, or we do nail clipping, or whatever it is that can
Right.
just bring in some quickly added revenue. I think that's such a great idea.
Exactly. And if you do know, and if you do collect email addresses and you keep them, and you can get email service providers, can be very inexpensive. You don't, sometimes they even have a free version that is
Yeah.
perfect for that.
Hmm.
But you can, even if you know you're going to have like a slow month, you can email the people that, maybe are due or maybe a little overdue, and,
Yeah.
say, hey, we'd love to see you back. Here's 10% off or 5% or a free box of treats or, something like
Yeah.
that. So people
Yeah.
just go, oh yeah, I meant to call, because I would get appointments all the time and people would be like, oh my God, I wanted to call you weeks ago.
Right.
So
Yeah. I
when they
think
get an email like that,
it's such an easy way to drum up quick business, especially
yes,
for service orientated. Like, hey, by the way, did you know? So I think that's a great idea. I love the collecting of the email. You are preaching to my choir for sure.
right.
Um, so as far as grooming or what you do for marketing and SEO and your customer retention, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to add? Any other tips that you'd like to give as that were spinning as we were talking?
Well, if any of the groomers out there have a website, you do want to make sure that it is search engine optimized, if you've heard of SEO.
Yeah.
And basically there's, 5 or 6 easy things that you can do to make sure that Google finds your website. And one of them would be to have your H1 tag, which is something, if you hover at the top of the bar and
Hmm.
you hover over the URL, it should tell you where you're at, what the store that you're at or the business that you're at. So something like that. Any image you have on your website should have an alt tag in case people with hearing or vision difficulties can see the picture and they can see that your website should be mobile optimized so people can read it easily on their mobile phones.
Yeah, that's great. Those are great tips. I think people don't always think about that. And I have to
Right.
say, a lot of times, I know we were talking about like old school taking appointments, but I feel like a lot of times I'll see grooming and they'll only have like a Facebook page, but they won't have a website. And I'm like, hey, you're not getting that Google listing, right?
Right.
So
Right.
people are looking on Google for grooming shops, even for the mobile groomers out there. Even if you have a territory, you should be
Right.
optimized on Google, I think, because I'll
Yes.
see them like, how do you only have a Facebook page? It's 2024. You should have a website, you know?
You should. And again, it doesn't have to be pages and pages. My
Right.
website was 3 pages.
Yeah.
You click on one, you go to one page, you click on the other, you go to the other. That was it. It doesn't
Yep.
have to be like a huge complicated deal.
There's even AI websites now that takes literally 30 seconds to create that you then can go in and edit, throw some photos in, and your
Yep.
website is created. Sorry to all our web
Yep.
designers out there. I didn't do that with our new website. Ours took a long time. But
But
I
there
think
is a
that's
place
really,
for that.
yeah, but that's it, right? So like if you're thinking your Facebook page is the main page, maybe you're like we need to hire somebody or we need to get more people into our store and they're not on Facebook, then they're not going to find you if you don't have a
Right.
website, right?
Right.
That's the way I look at it. You can't just
Yeah.
be on social media for those type of things. Well, how can people that are watching connect with you for your copywriting solution?
So for your copywriting solution at gmail.com is my email address.
Okay.
I'm also on LinkedIn. You just look up my name on LinkedIn and, message me on LinkedIn. You can email me. I also have yourcopywritingsolution.com, which is my website,
Okay.
which, has any information you can link to me off of there also.
Awesome. So I'll put all that stuff in the comment section. But I'm so happy that you came on to give us some more really in-depth grooming. We didn't go into any of the digging into the dirt, but I really wanted to give helpful advice to groomers out there. So I really appreciate all of the information that you gave, Claudia. And if you
Oh,
guys
you're
are
so welcome.
watching and you're a pet business and you're like, all the things that she was talking about when it comes to marketing and SEO and all that, and that just makes your brain spin, you need to talk to Claudia because she's been doing grooming for so long, and now she's married her experience in both of the fields. So I think it's really cool what you're doing.
Thank you.
So
And it's not
again,
as
thank
hard
you.
as it seems.
Right, right.
You know, so don't be, so just don't be scared of it. It's
Yeah,
easier than it sounds.
right. And you'll help them with it. It'll make their business even better. So I love
Right.
that. So again, thank you so much for being here, Claudia. I hope you have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you back here next week with another awesome member from American Pet Professionals. Again, learn more about American Pet Professionals on our website, americanpetprofessionals.com. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Claudia.
Bye.
See you
Thank you,
soon.
Nancy.